It's like our lives are like a cup of water that we continually pour out to refresh other people. And what I was doing, and what many of you are probably experiencing right now, is you are trying to pour water out of an empty cup. I want to give you some very practical ways that you can battle burnout. And for some of you, this is going to be preventative, all right? Because you're like, okay, Mark, I don't know if I don't really deal with this. Now, the interesting thing about burnout is when you deal with it in the middle of it, most of us don't really know that we're dealing with it. But for most of us, this is going to be life-changing for you, because you are in the middle of burnout and you don't even know it, and it's just having a ripple effect throughout your life. So I'm going to give you some practical things. Here's the first thing that I want to tell you to do. I want you to return to God's rhythms. Listen to what the angel said to Elijah. He said this. He said, so all at once an angel touched him and said, "Get up and eat." He looked around, and there by his head was some bread baked over hot coals and a jar of water. He ate and drank, and then he laid down again. And so he was like, okay, Elijah, I want you to get up, to get something to eat, get some food in your system, and then I want you to take a nap. I want you to get some rest. What was the angel doing? He was saying, Elijah, I want you to take care of yourself physically. What's interesting is that we run ourselves into the ground, and we all do it. And what the angel is saying is God didn't create you to run. Instead, he created you to run, rest, rest. And here's how I know this. Did you know that one of God's top 10 commandments is actually to rest? That God knew, and I think this is amazing, that God knew our tendency to just kind of run ourselves into the ground, so he had to command us to shut it down and rest. Most of us know what it is. It's called the Sabbath. And the Sabbath is we just take one day off for every 6 days of work, and we rest. And God he even built this, as you look at the creation narrative, he built this into creation. Now, the reality is, most Jesus followers, we don't do this. But here's what you need to know. God didn't put this in there to pull us back. God actually put this in there for our benefit. And here's the idea of the Sabbath. The idea of the Sabbath is we take some time and we just disconnect from work. In other words, we put down some of our balls that we're juggling all the time, and we reconnect and recharge with God and with other people. And I'm telling you, if you do this, it'll be one of the most spiritual things you will do. Some of you know this, but I ran a marathon years ago. And during the training time, I noticed that some people that were training had a very different strategy than what I had. You know, for some, their strategy was not just kind of run the entire time. Their strategy was, you run for a while, and then you walk, and then you run again, and then you walk. And it was told if it's done right, that you will actually get better times. And I'm thinking, like, now how is that possible? How can you get a better time by running and walking versus running the entire time? So I run the race, and I run the entire time, but there were people who beat me badly who did the run-walk strategy. And once again, I just kind of stepped away from it. At first I was confused, but then as I thought about it more, it made complete sense. You see, they walked so their body had time to recover, so they could run harder, longer. In running the entire time, I never gave my body time to recover, so the farther I went in the race, my pace actually got slower. And you know what? The same thing is true with our life. That our life is a marathon that was never meant to be run the entire time. Rather, it was meant to be run, walk, run, walk. And that walk is called the Sabbath. And when you practice the Sabbath, here's what you'll discover. You'll be more productive, more present, and more purposeful, because your body will have time to recover. And so the first thing that we need to do is we need to return to God's rhythms, because they're there to keep us from burnout. Here's the second one. We need to learn to replenish. Now, for many of you, you aren't going to like what I have to say. But here's what you need to know. For some of you, you need more than just rest. You need rest in a different way than you have ever rested before. And let me tell you what I mean by showing you what I discovered in the midst of my burnout. So when I was going through my burnout, it wasn't like I cut vacation time or days off. I took all my days off and I took all my vacation time. But when I would get back from vacation, you know what? I didn't feel rested because my mind couldn't shut down. I was still emotionally numb. And so it still didn't matter for me how much vacation time I took. Well, I was talking to my counselor at the time. I'm telling him about all this. And he said something to me that really hit home. He said this. He said, your problem isn't that you're tired. If you're tired, you can just go home and take a nap and all is good. Your problem is you're depleted. In other words, you have given so much out of yourself, you have nothing left to give. And so here's how this looks in our lives. It's like our lives are like a cup of water that we continually pour out to refresh other people. And what I was doing, and what many of you are probably experiencing right now, is you are trying to pour water out of an empty cup. The reality is your cup needs to be refilled. And so he gave me some advice that was life-changing for me. And I hope that this is life-changing for some of you. And here's the advice he gave me. He said, I want you to start a hobby that causes your mind or body to disconnect. Now, let me explain a little bit more what that means in a minute. But here's why this is important. When we're depleted, when we're emotionally numb, we look for ways to cope with that numbness and just that experience of depletedness. And what we do is we usually will begin to experience very bad coping mechanisms. And so for many of us, what we do is we spend too much, we eat too much, we drink too much, we smoke too much, we pop too many pills, we sit and just kind of in front of the TV and we just kind of like veg in front of the TV. Or what we do is we get on a screen and we're just looking through social media and we're just kind of going and going and going and going. And why do I say that those are bad coping mechanisms? They're bad because they don't refill us. What we need to do is we need to replace the bad coping mechanisms with good ones. And one of the best things that we can do is to start a hobby, and not just any hobby. If in your line of work, you used your mind a lot, what you need to do is you need to look for a hobby where you don't use your mind a lot, and instead, you use your body more, and vice versa. And let me tell you why that is. For me in my job, I use my mind all the time, and I can't shut down my mind. But when I started a hobby that was using my body more, here's what it allowed me to do. It allowed me to focus on my body, and as a result, it automatically disengaged my mind. And the same thing will happen for you. For many of us, we start hobbies that just continue to rehash what we're already struggling with. And so here's some of the things I did. I started to take up biking and swimming, which I hadn't done in the past. I started to do things around the house. Like I said, I'm not very mechanically inclined, and so I just looked for little things that I could do. So I got sweep out the garage, even if it didn't need sweeping out. I'd wash the car, even if the car didn't need to be washed. I would go and just clean the bathrooms. That actually helped me disengage. So I would clean the bathrooms. I had the kids teach me how to solve the Rubik's Cube. And you are thinking, well, doesn't that engage your mind? Not me, man. I could just sit down on the couch and just go and not care about anything. And so I just want to encourage you, you got to replenish. And one of the ways that I just want you to start a hobby. And if you use your mind in your job mostly, I want you to start a hobby that will actually focus on more physical activity, so it allows you to disengage your mind and vice versa. And see, you're going to find out you'll be experiencing more than rest. You'll find that you will start to replenish so you can better juggle all these balls that you have to juggle. Third and final thing, see a Christian counselor. I really believe in the power of the right outside voice. And the reality is, the root problem of burnout is actually a spiritual thing. And so for some of us, we need to get under the hood of our heart a bit and figure out what is driving us to live at that pace.